guys have any questions? Let's begin answering those questions. I'm going to make another brush out of another politician. Remember the brush I made last class? You guys remember?
Yeah.
I'm still using it. It's actually a really good brush. And I was talking to other class about it, and I was like, they're like, you should just make brushes of politicians. And I was like, it's a fun idea.
I feel like people will probably end up buying that.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it. There you go. Politic brushes. Okay. I'll make another one while answering some questions. So feel free. Feel free, friends.
Last lesson, you mentioned something about the rule of 3. Mm-hmm. And I would love for you to elaborate more on that, because I think I know what it is, but...
what do you think it is before I elaborate?
Like repeating an element 3 times so that it establishes some sort of language.
Yep, you got it.
Oh, okay.
What I love about a lot of the rules and stuff that I use is that they're what you call it? Like, it's in the name. You know? That's why it's catchy. But the best way to think about it, when I talked about it last class, was that if you think about it in terms of a song, you're repeating something again. It's allowing rhythm, you know? Like if I was like to do a beat of a song, and I was like, right? Can you hear that? Right? It'll be weird if like the rhythm changed a lot, right? Like it'd be like, right? Like it's hard to kind of like know what to expect. It makes you feel a little weird about it. That's why when people dance off beat, it feels gross, you know? Art is the same way, you know? If you have a lot of pieces that are just not, they don't necessarily, there's not like an echoing or like a, what you call it? Yeah, like a rule of 3 type of situation going on, right? Like a balancing act, a prediction of what's you're going to see again in the artwork, you know, then it makes people feel weird about it. Make sense?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But I'll do this too, where when we get closer to refinement, like on my demo right now, I'll kind of like walk through what's happening, why it's starting to look good.
Oh, awesome!
It's gonna be good. It's kind of cool. I can make like a demon. It's already a face. That's actually not a bad strategy. Anyway.
A quick question.
Trick is nobody needs to know that this is what it is. It has to be a secret. I feel like this is too contrasty of the face. Yeah, go ahead.
I feel like when you're painting, like you're kind of just rapidly like doing quick iterations of changing values in like a specific design or whatever. How do you like do that without completely blowing things out of proportion and kind of like going outside of what your values should be for a certain material? Like, because I feel like whenever I do that, I end up just kind of like making it really muddy and unclear.
Yeah, I understand. Hold on. Let me make my AOC brush. Give me a second. We can do...
Looks very interpretive.
Okay. All right. Actually, I don't like that I added those jitters. It's sad to say, but I think the Trump brush is still the best brush. But we'll see.
It looked pretty good, honestly.
It's gonna be an ongoing gag. Why is there still there's angle jitter? Okay. So hold on. Let me get my watch. So the short answer is that it's just skill, right? Mm-hmm. And I always like to position this idea from that point of view because it's just the truth. You know what I mean? And I think that sometimes people get real caught up on like seeing somebody do something, and it's like, again, this whole mystifying aspect of art, you know? Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's really important to kind of make sure that you are not mystified. So when I say that it's, what you call it, like skill, I mean it, right? Because a lot of what I'm doing whenever I'm managing values is just I am able to understand and see what values, but more so I'm able to just put those values in straight up, you know? And this is like the equivalent to asking a gymnast, like how do they do backflips so well? Like every time you try to do a backflip, you land on your head, you know? They can tell you, right? They can tell you what they do, but it doesn't then all of a sudden mean you can do a backflip, right? What do you have to do after they've told you? You have to practice, you know?
Right.
And so going back to what is it that you need to practice? Well, that's the thing where you correct your values constantly, right? You paint your painting and then you find that your painting's values are, adjusted poorly, then you just need to do it again. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, and the next time you paint, try to be a little bit more bold, right? Take some chances.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm just kind of like going too subtly about it when I feel like you kind of just jump in with straight black to add in like a plane change or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Like because I've seen you do that, but I also like hear like a lot of people say that it kind of just desaturates it. And I mean, it's black, so of course it's gonna do that. But
yeah, sure.
I don't know.
But like, yeah, like okay, so this is what I'm trying to tell you though. Like, this is why it's so hard to teach, and anyone who can like just tell you something and then also think that can just lead you to just all of a sudden do it is not genuine. I'm trying to tell you, like that's why. It's because it's a skill that you have to obtain. Like it's the same thing whenever people say like, how do you like have such good brush control? Like it's like a trick, you know? And I'm like, there's no trick, man. Like I have good brush control because I've been painting for years and focusing on having good brush control. Like there's no way around it, you know?
Right.
And once you stop thinking of it that way, right? Like it's like, okay, AJ's going to tell me, and then now I'm going to do it, and then it's going to work, right? You just need to get out of that mindset, right? In fact, I always like to use this example of like, nobody likes to hear bad news about their bad habits. They love to hear good news about their bad habits, right?
Right.
And so when you look at like what you call it, you look at like people who are capable of doing some extraordinary things, and then they tell you, well, this is how I do it. They're telling you from a teacher or a mastery bias, You understand? They're already good at it. So their perspective of why it works is coming from a high level, you know?
Right.
And it's just not relatable at the lower levels. And that's why I always like to use examples of like thinking of this as like fitness and health. Everybody knows that they should be eating right, but they just don't. Everybody knows they should be working out, but they just don't. You know?
Yeah. So what would you like recommend as like a focused practice if that was something that I wanted to?
Yeah. Cast studies, just painting in black and white very often. Doing studies where you gauge the value ranges that other painters are using and pick the kinds of value ranges that you appeal to. There's different interpretations. I like I use old school methods. I don't use anything new. I use what is it? Oh, damn it! It slipped my mind right now. Cavaggio uses it. You know, Da Vinci did. Shoot.
Chiaroscuro.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of it. I kept on thinking of the other term, contrapposto. Contrapposta.
Right.
I kept on seeing that in my mind. And I was like, that's not it though, AJ.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's something else. It's another old because they've been doing it for thousands of years, you know. Sargent, he does it, you know. It's just light and dark. That's why I go black. I just say, oh, shadow time, you know.
Right.
And it does desaturate. Yeah, that's why I resaturate it.
Okay.
Yeah, and but like if you don't know that, like, oh, but it desaturates it. Like it's a very shallow perspective of the approach.
Right.
You know, some people are right. That's why they don't do it. That's why they prefer other strategies. You know, sometimes I don't even use black or white when I paint because it just, to me, it's I want it to feel more colorful.
Right.
But I also like the way that it looks when it looks a little bit muddy, like mixed paint.
Yeah. No, I like that too.
Yeah. So it's just that I've found a way that works best for me.
Okay.
But yeah, it's there are actually plenty of examples of how to practice this, getting better at your values. It's a very traditional painting strategy. You know?
Yeah.
You just got to look at traditional painters. That's the best place to start. And that's where I started. Like, it's a why fix something that ain't broke approach.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have one, I think.
Yeah, go for it.
So, talking about the, I guess, the way you've learned, I guess, your learning process before you became a professional. I want to know if did you like how did you study like the old masters that you listed?
Oh, I just talked about it too. Cast studies, whatever. Here's another teach them how to fish analogy. Okay. What do you think you would do, like, to get better?
Well, I guess I got some books, maybe any material that's useful.
Yeah. And what would you do? You got a book? It's in your hand. What's next?
Dissect the way they think, how the way they view their subjects, I guess.
Perfect. That's a good one. What else? What else could you do? Give me another example.
Practice their method.
Awesome.
And
what else do you think you could do? Give me another example of a way to study and practice. Keep going. You're doing great.
I guess take away something that might benefit your way of what you want to, I guess, draw or paint. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Keep going, dude. You're on fire. There's a moral story to it, dude. Don't worry.
That's all I can think of right now.
Try to think of another one. Just try. Anything. Like, let's come from a different angle. See if it helps. What do you think you're not good at right now?
Well, me personally, I think I'm bad at viewing shapes, maybe.
Okay,
Coming
so
up
now let's stop there. Viewing shapes. All right.
with
What do you think you need to do to get better at viewing shapes?
practice,
But what to
uh,
practice?
breaking down uh, subjects into shapes.
Yep, there you go. All right, so I'm gonna give you the moral. It's a little bit of what I was talking to Xander earlier. Remember that conversation I had with him? And the point I'm trying to make here, okay, is that like whenever people ask this question of like, how did I study? Right?
Yeah.
Like I did something that was different, unique.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, no, I just did everything. Right?
Yeah.
I did all the stuff, you know? And whenever people ask me this question, then I challenge them. I make them answer these questions. I go through the list of stuff like you just did right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing you said is a bad strategy. You understand?
Yeah.
Like even in copying, I've gone on record saying copying is not studying, but I didn't say copying is bad. You know? Copying is another tool of studying. It's just that people think that copying is studying. You know? And the point I'm trying to make here, the moral of the story is that I talked about earlier. As long as you're moving that pencil, right, and you're staying focused on what to get better at, you're gonna get better. It's just like impossible.
Yeah.
Impossible not to. Okay. And so for me, I didn't know what I was doing. There's a lot of stuff that I studied that I did wrong. I studied the wrong way for quite often, you know?
Yeah.
But for me to be like, don't study this way, like I found that even when I have students, I teach them and make them do stuff that will make them fail. You know, I actually expect them to fail, you know? But it's deliberate. It's a deliberate lesson because some things are better learned through experience.
Yeah.
Like I could tell you, like, okay, let's get political again since it's the season. Biden is most likely going to win in a majority, which is what I was hoping for. Okay. But there was a point where I was like, he might barely win, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends were like cool with like him just winning, right? I was like, no. He needs to like straight up win. You know? Like this can't be close. And it's still kind of close, dude. Right?
Yeah.
And there's still like almost 70 million people who voted for Trump. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. And I still kind of believe this is to be true. This is a hot take. If it's close, then I don't want Biden to win. I want Trump to win. Okay?
Yeah.
Because a part of me is like, we need to learn the hard way. You know what I mean? It's one thing where everyone's on Facebook arguing with one another. It's another thing where you can't literally afford the home you live in. It's another thing that all your loved ones are dying from COVID or lack of access to the hospital because of high numbers of hospitalization, right? It's another thing when the businesses that you loved are getting shut down because these corporations are just taking over, right? Like you can't hide that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a little bit of me is like, I feel like we need to get bitch slapped for us to actually learn. Okay.
Yeah.
Now going back to art, that's kind of the same thing, right? Like when you are studying so wrong for so long, that that lesson that you learn from that mistake is so awesome. Like it really sets you up for success, you know? So I mentioned earlier that some people were trying to cancel me just because I wanted to debate Trump supporters, right?
Yeah.
I have only blocked one person in my whole career, and it's because of personal reasons. Okay,
Mhm.
but I don't block people that I disagree with. In fact, I think when I see my friends do it, on both sides, by the way, I don't think it's just a left leaning thing. I've seen like my friends now, all of my Trump supporter friends are blocking all of the people that are memeing because they can't
Yeah.
take it, dude. Oh, how the tides have turned, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I get it now. I get why people were so into it because it is kind of funny. It's like just getting roasted. It is funny, especially when you're
Mhm.
doing the roasting. But you know, I'm kind of against it because it creates more plurality. I was using the Halo example earlier with my best friend, right? Like that's a good
Mhm.
example. But let's take a step back though. Let's think about why I don't block people. It's because I agree that there are some problems in our nation, and I agree that people are feeling hurt. I think that's true, and people believe in things just not because they think that they are right, but because they have been told their whole life they've been wrong. You know,
Yeah.
and so um, I am a big firm believer. You should learn the hard way. You know, as long as it doesn't kill you, right?
Mhm.
Or like severely hurt you. I think there's a middle ground there, right? And
Yeah.
there's this guy that was trying to cancel me, and he used something that happened many years ago. I had a Kickstarter, right? And it was a
Mhm.
failed Kickstarter. I was one of those people. It was a really bad one. And during the time, I was getting canceled, way before cancel culture was like actually really a thing.
I think I've seen that before in one of your comments on YouTube about
Oh yeah,
a failed Kickstarter or something, but
yeah,
I
totally.
don't know what it was about.
Yeah. You can look into it, man. My Kickstarter is still there, and you can see all the comments, man. It's pretty bad. And but here's the thing: like 99% of the criticism that I was getting was completely fair. I failed.
Mm.
Um, and what I ended up doing was refunding anybody who wanted a refund and then giving books to anybody who still wanted the book because it was an art book that I was giving out. Okay.
Yeah.
But I just completely dropped the ball. It took way too long. It's just like it was a disaster. There's lots of reasons for it, but even for those reasons, it was irresponsible. You know.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, I got to put this behind me. And you know, you can do stretch goals, and I had all these extra things I was going to give to people, and I was like, I can't even do this, man. Like, I'm just going to put all this behind me. If you want a partial refund, like if you got your book and you want a partial refund, I'll refund you partially, right? Because
Yeah.
the extra stretch goals was to give you all these extra things like prints and all this cool stuff. But I was like, I didn't do any of that shit, right?
Mhm.
And people did. People asked for partial refunds and stuff, and I gave them refunds. Even the one that I think there's people who gave like thousands of dollars because they had like high goals, and I refunded those people. It's not a big
Yeah.
deal, man. Like I was like, I have to, you know,
Mhm.
because I don't believe in what I did. It's not who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But dude, the lesson I learned from that was enormous, right? It's
Mhm.
huge. I learned a lot about myself during that time. It was one of the greatest failures I've ever made in my whole career. You know?
Yeah.
And so when I tell you that when you're studying and trying stuff out and you make huge mistakes, my dude, that's like part of the deal, you know?
Yeah.
I would hope that you guys this is one of those lessons, by the way, the Kickstarter stuff, where if anybody does want advice on that, I can give you stuff because I do also think that just trust me on this. You don't want to experience it as well. Because that's kind of I could have learned I could have been had a little bit more foresight on why it was a bad idea. And there were people in my life that were telling me, like they were warning me that it might not be a good idea. you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't listen to them because I was like, again, I'm super arrogant. Right? That arrogance got me in a lot of trouble. But I also think that that partnered with my empathy, and the empathy in this regard was I screwed people over, man. Like people really trusted me. I lied, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I could deliver at these times. I lied. I didn't. Whatever the reasons were, right? The one thing that's true was it wasn't because I was trying to steal people's money. That's a narrative I never would subscribe to. Irresponsible, yes. Incompetent, absolutely. You know, reckless, totally. Fraudulent, not it. I wasn't like trying to fuck people over for a stupid art book. Are you crazy? Like,
Yeah.
even if I was keeping my best interests in line, right? That's a stupid strategy. You know, like in career wise, I would have been genuinely canceled. The reason why I wasn't is because there's plenty of people who did support me. They were like, it's fine. You made a mistake. It's all good. You know?
Yeah.
And there were people who didn't support me, but they knew who I was. Like, didn't support the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
They were like, no, I know AJ, dude. Like, he just fucked up. Like, why everyone going all in? You know? So if I didn't have that, yeah, definitely, I don't know if I would be teaching you guys today. You know? I know that I am a good person. I just was stupid. And so when I saw, by the way, to kind of shift this, when I saw President Trump run for president and then become president and, you know, do the things that he's done as president, incompetence can recognize incompetence, dude. You know, I was like, I know exactly how he's fucking all this stuff up because I've been through the other side of this, you know. He also did stuff like he had a school that was completely it was totally a sham, and even to this day he still says that he was treated unfairly. What a bitch, dude. And so it's like people have more honor in those who can accept their mistakes and failures, right? And I think if you're going to be a leader of the free world, that's like what I would want in my leader to say, yeah, you know, I thought these policies were like, for instance, with the kids in cages, that was like a big deal to me, right?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, look, man, like this shit is bad. Like I didn't realize, you know, and then like really fix it, like get these kids back to their parents, like sort it out truly. You know, he's like, but Obama, I'm like, you fucking punk, dude. I don't give a fuck if Obama did it, dude. Like Obama's an asshole too. What are you saying? You know?
Yeah.
He's like, you know, it's like this whole argument of like, well, he did it first. It's so childish. It's like that's what my kids do. Like it's so. Anyway, I don't want to go on there. Going back to the art stuff, making failures, right? That's what I'm saying. Like you know, it actually is a good thing. It builds character and it builds your artistic strength to find these mistakes and make these mistakes. So whenever you're doing like you feel like is this study good or am I going the right path? You might not be. You might be, you know? But whatever ends up happening, regardless, you're gonna learn something. You're gonna get better. Oh shit, I threw my Wacom pen. Hold on. I got too excited. I threw my pen across the room. No, because when I talk, I use hand gestures, and you can't see me, but it's just out of habit. And the pen wasn't that secure in my fingers. But anyway, does this all make sense too?
Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, so now I'm gonna give you the fish. So I was like teaching you how to fish to like you know to move into this world of studying. Yeah, the best way to study that I found, even with all this experience, something that I think anybody can pick up, is just more focused study. Okay, meaning like if you feel like you need to work on your shapes, then just stay focused on shapes for like a week. And then once you feel like you got a hold of that, pick another thing you're not good at, and then be focused on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
There's this idea of like, you know, I'm going to work out every little thing. I'm going to work on perspective, anatomy, and like all these things, like just indiscriminately, right? And I'm like trying to tell you that when you do that, it's just kind of like vanilla learning. It's really hard to make anything stick. It still works, but it's harder to kind of see quantifiably what you've learned. But when you're like, I'm going to focus on shapes, at the beginning of the week, you will see huge growth by the end of the week, or at least you will see growth.
Yeah.
And that growth is what I'm all about.
Yeah, I think I kind of found that personally on my side when it comes to drawing. I think it's because I took a chunk of a big break, I guess, from drawing, that I kind of went a bit off balance with my creativity, I guess I would say.
Yeah, you want to like bounce around. You want to refocus
Yeah,
on new things as
and
often as
like
you need to.
and then once I bounced back into going back into digital, I realized that my shapes were very how would I say, bland, or it had no flavor, I guess I would say.
Yeah, and that's
Uh,
again, that's going back to this premise of like if you are just kind of indiscriminately learning and just like I'm just going to do this just because it doesn't stick as well as if you're just all about it. I like to tell people too, like if you're dreaming about it, then you're learning,
mhm.
right? Like if you're like so deep into shapes that you're dreaming about shapes,
Yeah.
then you're on your path to really understand them.
I think that's me right now.
Yeah,
Like I've just been focused on it so much, like every day.
that's awesome.
But yeah.
Yeah, like I've been paying attention to these elections and stuff, right? And been pretty political all these years. And I'm still like learning stuff. Like I've come to learn that with all these like people complaining about mailer fraud and talking about electoral college, and it's come to my attention that I think the majority of Americans just don't know how elections work. Right? Like I don't think anybody does. Like people thinking that mail-in ballots are illegal, it's weird, man. Um, and then like it's also weird to just be like find out that people were using Sharpies and like ruining their votes. A lot of the Trump supporters were using that as evidence as mailer fraud. And again, remember, competence can spot incompetence, right? Incompetence can spot incompetence. When I
Yeah.
saw that, I was like, because my friend sent me that, he's like, "Oh, dude, what do you think of this? Like, clearly, look at their fucking mailer fraud." I was like, "Dad, if you're telling me this is like some sort of conspiracy, here's a Sharpie, you know?
Mm.
If that's what you're thinking, versus, oh, we ran out of pen, like here's some Sharpies." Like, what do you think is more likely? People are like trying to be conspiratorial, or like people that are fucking dumb and they didn't realize Sharpies were going to ruin ballots? I was like, I'd take the latter, dude. And he's like, oh, yeah, actually, that's a good point. I was like, people just they're looking at all these things that are going on. Some of them are just completely fake, but others are just it just demonstrates incompetence. There's no conspiracy here, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, if this is evidence of anything, it's evidence that we need a modern way of voting. You know, we need to like
Yeah.
evolve the way we're electing our politicians in this country. And then people just forget like how counting works too. You know, they realize there's only so many seconds in a day, and even if you had one individual counting a ballot every second, you know, there's not enough seconds, you know, for that individual, and that's fucking crazy. Nobody can go that fast. You wouldn't want them to go that fast, right?
Yeah.
So if they had to legally count, it's just going to take a while. And each ballot, for those of you who aren't aware, has not just like it's not just a fucking American Idol. Like, who do you want, Joe or Trump? There's like other politicians there. You're voting for Congress, Senate, mayors, like educational board type stuff. Like you're voting for like local government stuff too.
Yeah.
There's like many people, so they can't just be like, all right, Joe Biden. Like they have to look at all the other votes. It's really selfish to just think that they would have to focus on that. But that's what I'm saying. Like I think a lot of people don't get it, and it's just it's a lesson being learned all around.
Yeah. Maybe it's like the new voters, maybe, but I'm not sure if it's
No,
like
Trump made
the
it
active.
Yeah, Trump deliberately made it like complicated. He was like, nobody can count mail-in ballots until election day. Like I mailed in my ballot, or I didn't mail it in. I put it in a Dropbox 3 weeks ago. Like I voted like way before election day, you know.
Yeah.
And Trump deliberately went to the swing states, this very states that everyone's flipping out about, and he wanted them to. He like pushed them. Georgia, I believe, is like Republican ran. You know, it's not like the Republicans themselves are trying. Like, how would these Republican run states let the Democrats infiltrate? You know?
Yeah.
That was another thing, because you're talking about like hypocrisy earlier, and I felt like a big conspiracy theory of Republicans at the start of quarantine was like this was a government funded pandemic. And it's like it's your government. Like you
Yeah.
I don't
People forget,
understand.
man. Yeah, it's like if this is the one argument that I actually agree with, that's a conservative position, that the government is incompetent.
Sure.
I am in solidarity with this. Okay. So it is bizarre to me that you can have in one breath the government is incompetent, but then the government is this full scale attack on our democracy.
Right.
It's like, this is the same motherfuckers who run the DMV, dude. Are you crazy? No, man. Like, I'm arguing that we need to be better about that. We need to hire better leadership and better management of these government facilities, because there's some that work really well. Like when I had my passport, it was such a funny story. My passport expired a month from the time that I was going to Spain. So I was going to Spain for this talk, and it said your passport's going to expire in a month. And I was like, okay, but it's not expired. Right? And they're like, yeah, but the fact that it's expiring in a month, Spain won't let you in. And I was like, what? So I was like upset about it, but I had to get a new passport. I had to go do this talk in Spain. So the guy helped us out though. He was like, you can go to this, place, this area where they can do overnight passports. So I did that. And that shit was smooth, dude. I had to go early in the morning. I showed up, walked in, an hour later I had a new passport. Like printed and everything, like the book, And I was like, what?
Yeah.
This shit's tight. So there's places where if you and I think the reason why there's a monetary incentive to have quick passports from like a corporate standpoint. Let's imagine you hire somebody and you need them to travel overseas, get them a passport like overnight. Seems like a good thing to put money into, Yeah. And so anyway, and you can see it in localized areas too. Like when you look at churches, like churches do this, like they tax their people. It's voluntary tax, right? But they do it, and they do it well. And at the end of it, you have like these community services that the church hosts, and it's like these same individuals are also the same people that say, "I don't want to do that for anyone else," And it's so like, yeah, the hypocrisy of like, why not, dude? It's so tight. Like my friend's church, like they have free therapy. They have free diapers for moms who don't have like money to buy diapers. They have free after school programs for the kids. There's like all these things. Like he was telling me, it's like so much cool stuff. They had like free gym, free CrossFit, free physicians, right? Like just like basic like practitioners. And I'm like, that's fucking socialism, bro. I was like, why not us? And so I think there's a scale issue. That's probably why, and that's a good argument I actually can subscribe to as well. I think when you start to escalate the size of things, it does get a little weird. So that's justifiable. But to think that there's no way to come up with a better system, I don't believe in that. I think we can totally figure it out, especially because you see other nations sort it out. I was arguing with somebody about COVID and how Korea is a good model to live by because they totally got over it and they're handling it really well, right? Even though the numbers are going up, they're able to manage it. And his response to that is, well, they're more prepared. And I said, okay. Like, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, why weren't we prepared? Like, we are the biggest, like, you can't have this perspective that we are like the greatest nation. And then all of a sudden we're just a bunch of like idiots, you know? It's like, no, dude, like we were totally in the lockstep of being prepared. Obama said that we should be prepared. Trump got dismantled the pandemic.
Well, didn't we have that?
task
We had
force.
that pandemic team,
Yeah,
and
he
like people
disbanded
in
them.
China, and didn't we have even like a pandemic like playbook too?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, get out of here with what they were planned. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, we should have had that. And I think even some of the military, they said that this is a national security threat. Like, there was plenty of examples. I will give it to you that Trump, in the early stages of it, if you believe he didn't know, right? Like, if he genuinely had no idea, which is a lot what people say. I don't believe this, but let's just say that's true. It's almost at the end of the year. He still doesn't know, dude. Like, he still doesn't follow his own guidelines. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, his own guidelines. Like, say you should like wear a mask and not have large gatherings. And he's like, fucking, let's have a rally, dude. Masks are optional. I'm just like, cool, dude. Like, this is not awesome. But anyway, I'm gonna get off this rant. Let's get back to the Q&A. But the moral of the story, the whole point of like even me going on a rant was just talking about it's okay to make mistakes. So let's just wrap it on that. It's okay to make mistakes. Own them. Like, learn the hard way and then be accountable for that. It's not a bad strat. Any other questions, concerns, thoughts?
I think I got one.
Oh, it better be good.
Thing is, they might be kind of lame, but I don't know. Worth asking, I guess.
Let's find out.
How do you, like you said, you're like an arrogant person, and I can empathize with that a lot. My question is like, how do you avoid being a jerk?
Oh, that's easy. Just don't be a jerk, right? Like, what makes a person a jerk? You know, like, it's like when I say arrogant, it's just another way of saying like being proud.
I know.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you like look at like the word, like the definition of arrogance, let's look at it. All right. The quality of being arrogant.
I love those definitions.
No, there's more. Hold on. Conceit. No. There was a. Here, let's just use this. Making claims or pretensions to superior importance or rights, overbearingly assuming, insolently proud. Why are you using more words that I have to find definitions to, bro? An arrogant public official characterized by proceeding from arrogance, a sense of superiority, self-importance, or entitlement. Yeah, totally. Superiority, self-importance, and or entitlement. I think this probably is the part you should latch on to when it comes to arrogance, right? Like self-importance. I find myself important. I think that's a good characteristic. Superiority. I think that comes from competition.
Yeah.
And an entitlement, that you deserve stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the problem with arrogance is that if any one of these are just untrue, it's self-sabotaging, right? If I think I'm better than you, but then you're clearly better than me, then I just look like an idiot, right? If I like just barely, I went to school once and then I come out of school thinking that I deserve to go to all the jobs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's delusional. That's naive. Again, it's self-sabotaging. You see where I'm going with this? Mm-hmm. And then self-importance, right, could just reflect selfishness, just not thinking about others. Okay. So if you reframe it, like, this is how you prevent yourself from being a jerk. So if you think you're superior, you should demonstrate it. You should have some evidence of it. And if you don't, if someone comes with a better counter evidence, you got to stop being defensive. You got to just take it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the example of the portfolio. I believed that I was better than all the people in the line. Right? I was like, once they see my portfolio, until I literally saw somebody that was better than me. And I was like, oh shit, I did full face turnaround, you know?
Yeah.
I felt entitled at that moment, but that entitlement got evaporated also in the same moment. You know? I think that when you keep this to yourself, this arrogance, that's probably the best way to go about it. Right? If you're going out, like you never hear me, like when I do my talks and stuff, like bring people down. Right? I hold these views. Like I do believe I'm entitled to certain things. Like I believe it. Like I believe that I am worth stuff. I do find myself important, right? And I do find that I am better than other people, you know? Right? I do have these positions in my mind, right? But I don't project them because it's not important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can use a good example. Like people, oh, you're better than people. Like if you hear that out loud, right? Of course, that sounds really bad.
Right. I know.
But if I was to give you a context, do you think that I am better than a serial murderer, right? And if I'm like, you can't be better than everybody. Like that's like there is obviously opportunities where we can kind of thread the needle here, you know?
Yeah.
But the problem I think when it ends up happening is when you just straight up like the thing that I actually hate about our nation is our arrogance, because a lot of this I don't think is true, you know, about our nation, you know, like I don't think that we're better in a lot of stuff. You know, the only things that I can see is that we're better at, we're really good at murdering people, pretty good at it, but that's nothing to be proud about, you know. Like we're really good at it, as bad as you know other people were in the past at murdering people. There's no one more like so good. When 9/11 happened, which was a tragedy of the fucking world, our response to that was like incredible, dude. Like like I like to use the example of like someone comes to your house, and like this is a very small scale, okay, so don't take this as literal. Someone comes to your house and like punches your daughter in the face, right? And your response to that is to burn their house down and all of their neighbors' houses down, you know, and then just take all their stuff, you know. And then the actual person that punched you is nowhere to be. They're not even living there anymore. Okay. That's kind of how I saw it. I was like, there was justified reaction to be very like, let's get some fucking justice. But then the way that we handled that justice, I felt like was a little bit of like a left turn, you know?
Yeah.
And if you think about like our self-importance, right? We put ourselves over everyone else, you know? This whole idea of like, why should I pay for healthcare of other people, right? This idea, you know? I had a friend that talked to me about this, and I was like, do you have a friend in your life, let's say, who's overweight and is clearly going to be, you know, diabetic or is diabetic? And he's like, yeah, of course. I actually know a couple of people. I was like, let's say they need help to pay their medical bills because, you know, they got laid off or whatever, like something tragic happened and they're in a bad spot. He's like, yeah, of course, I'll help them out. I was like, okay, but why? He's like, well, that's like my friend. I was like, okay, let me change one thing and let me see how you answer this. What if you didn't know that person? And I'm not saying that like that person changes. That person's the same person, right? Just in a parallel universe, you guys never met. Okay. Would you still not want to pay for that person's bills? Right. And I was like, that's the problem here, is that I feel if I met any one of your friends, I would get along with them really well. Right. And probably become really good friends with them as well, you know? And I'm over here saying they deserve, I want to also help pay their medical bills. And you know this is true. This is true objectively because we have GoFundMe and GoFundMe is successful. So clearly we want to help each other out, right?
Yeah.
So let's just make it fucking official, guys. You know? And an entitlement is to say, because we're American, because I was born here, I deserve all the stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I just happened to be born here. I wasn't entitled to anything. You know, my dad just happened to be here. I didn't choose to be here. I was lucky to be here. You know?
Yeah.
And so, like, I think when you're arrogant and you think of it in this context, I think that is why it's bad. And I was using our nation as an example, right? But if you look at an individual that thinks this way, I think it's also, that's why it's fucking upsetting. It's frustrating. But if you think of it in a more of a positive light, and like I said, you keep it to yourself, right? And then, and like I told you, I roll with empathy too. Like, empathy is my thing, right? And if let's look at the definition of empathy: the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, right? I roll hard. I roll deep with this. So as much as I feel like I'm the best, I'm like, dude, I'm the fastest speed painter in this world. There's only like a handful of people could beat me, which could be completely false, dude. Or maybe there's like hundreds of people. You know, I just never seen them. But in my little like echo chamber, I'm the best. All right, but I wouldn't stop anybody else from trying to become the best. I would want them to be also. I want that competition, right? That's why I teach people. I remember when I was teaching my stuff and I was doing it for like $5. And people are like, dude, aren't you afraid that people are going to get better than you and like take your jobs? I was like, what? No, dude, like, it would be selfish. I learned from so many different artists who gave this information to me for free, you know, from talks that they've done, from workshops I saw, to YouTube channels that I followed, you know, to art that I just found online and just looked at it and it inspired me, right? Like, why should I keep this shit to myself? That's incredibly selfish. You know?
Yeah. I heard once that highly competent people tend to want to help people with potential to become highly competent.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a way of like giving back the stuff that you've learned.
Yes, to respect where you came from. Yeah. Right. And so I have a hard time respecting individuals that try to prevent that from happening. And you might not think that this is a thing that happens with other large scale professionals. Yeah, you'd be surprised. I had a really good friend of mine who was going down that rabbit hole, and I had to like slap him out of it. I was like, dude, like, you're wrong. You know? I was like, you're wrong here. Like, believe me, man, you're not on the right side of history in this argument. You know? And I gave him plenty of examples of other artists because we used to talk about that. And I brought those artists back up. And he was like, well, that's a little different. And it's like, no, man, like, you want it to be different. So that way you can get away with your thinking, you know? But I was like, it's the same though. It's the same. And he's just like, like at the end of that conversation, he was not happy. But a week later, he was like, I think you're right, man. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. He's like, it just pisses me off, you know? And I was like, I know. Like, because there's some people that did exploit it, but I was like, that's the consequence of sharing information. That's my point, right? Is that your people are going to get access to it. And even like, you know, Hitler was a great painter. You know, he was pretty good at it. The bad people can get good at art too, dude. It's not like only for us good moral people. Yeah. It's just a skill, dude. And so I think if you have this like sense of like, yeah, I'm pretty good, like you just keep it to yourself, because it's a good motivator, I think, to kind of like, to keep you focused. And you should just only find the positive. And anytime it's negative, like I have a good metric as long as I'm not hurting anybody. You know, like I'm pretty principled there. I think as long as you're not hurting nobody. Like it's okay to be a dick even. Like I think if it's even okay to be a mean person, you know, like just like hurt people's feelings type of thing. Not like hurting people like physically or like trying to ruin people's lives.
Yeah.
Just like you know, like Bill Burr. You know Bill Burr, like the comedian. Yeah. He's just kind of like an angry guy.
Yeah.
he's just kind of like mean spirited, you know. But like I don't think he's a bad person. Like it's okay. Like he built his whole career around that persona too, which is great. But I tell students, I don't think you're this, by the way, but I have some students that I felt like this is true, and I was like, look, if you have these like kind of ideas, like just be freelance, because you're just not going to like working with other people if you have this position that everyone's just a bunch of jackholes. You know, it's like you're going to be real upset then in the work environment. You know.
Interesting. Gotta experience that, I guess.
Yeah, there's a couple people in the industry that are real jackholes, but they're incredibly successful. So,
Anybody we'd know?
Huh?
Is that anybody we'd know?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not gonna name them because I think that's not my place. I'd rather
Yeah, I'm just joking.
I'd rather them either come to terms and kind of change their perspective, or learn the hard way. A couple of them have, but again, I'm not about that cancel culture, dude. I think as long as there's no real like murdering that's going, like that's different. Like I don't want the murder on the streets, bro. Like, oh yeah, so and so like paints his painting with the blood of young children. And like, yeah, gotta put a stop to that. You know? But just being a jerk. Yeah, just being a jerk. Like for instance, there was a guy when my friend was hanging out with them, and a fanboy came up to this guy and was like fanning out, and he was like being nice to him, and he gave him like a signature and whatever, and then the guy walked away. This artist was like said to my friend, he's like, "Don't you hate it, like these fanboys?" And my friend was just like, "What the?" In his mind, he was saying this. He's like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, I don't look at these people as like people. I just see them as like bags of meat that think they have ideas." And my friend was just like, "Yo, that's fucking crazy that you think this way." And he like was like kind of mad at him. He's like arguing with him about it. He's like, "Are you serious? Like you really believe this?" He's like, "Yeah, man. There's a bunch of fucking like it's tiring. It's exhausting." He's like, "Dude, these guys like support you. They love you. You know, like you wouldn't be where you're at without them, dude. Are you crazy? You know?" And but my friend was like, it was like a agree to disagree moment type of thing. But over time, like he completely just disconnected with that individual because they were pretty good friends. But then they just like there's just more and more that was happening. But as evil as that may have sounds, and as much as it would be great to go cancel this individual. Like nobody needed, like he didn't say that to anybody. He didn't hurt anyone, right? In fact, if anything, he was very nice to that person, and that person felt very positive about it, and that could have had a positive influence in that person's life, right?
Yeah.
There's no need for us to kind of like drag this guy in the streets, He just has really toxic opinions about his fans, but it's his opinions, and he doesn't act on them. So I don't really engage. You know what I mean? Because my friend wanted to. He was like, "I want to like tweet this shit," and like I was like, "Nah, man. Like it's fine. He's just an asshole." Like you don't want to be in this camp. People can't be assholes because there's lots of us assholes out there, dude. And we just gotta we have to be able to understand that people are allowed to do that. But as soon as for instance, if he did that publicly, like ashamed this individual, like said that out loud in front of others, that's different. That's a negative impact on that individual's life. Like your hero saying that to you to your face, dude, that's fucking crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very demoralizing. But they exist, and the good news is though, these assholes, there's very few of them. Okay, I've only know maybe like 6 total out of like all the great artists out there. So don't think that it's gonna just like you're gonna run into somebody like it's like all over the place. Okay.
All right.
And there are some people that are just kind of just negative. I don't necessarily think they're mean. They're just negative people. That's different. Anyway, any other questions?
That was a super great answer, by the way. Thanks.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's okay to be an asshole, guys. I'm giving you the green light. Just keep it to yourself. You know, like I loved The Apprentice. You know, like Donald Trump's like show, like Celebrity Apprentice. It's a shame, man. He didn't keep it to himself. That he's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Like I actually was a fan of his, like way before all this stuff happened. And I wasn't even mad that he was running for president. I just thought it was silly. And I don't even think I was mad when he first got elected. I was mad, but not because it was Trump. I was mad that I thought people, like, why did people think that Trump was tight? Like, I just didn't recognize my nation. And I kind of still don't. Shit was too close, man. You know? And so.
Yeah, I thought for sure there would be a bigger distance. I did not think we'd be in this position right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, one last question I'm going to roll out here, guys.
I just want to say that this monster dude is bitching.
Yeah, well, you can thank AOC. If it wasn't for her contributions, I mean, AOC 2024, dude. I'm all in, dude. Dude, I love her a lot, man. I think she's a great politician. There's some things that she's done I don't necessarily agree with, but I think she's a real one. We need more real ones. Anyway, this painting brought to you by AOC.
Kind of just branching off of what you were talking about before with my last question. You said that, like, yes, black would desaturate it, but work it back into the fold. Is there like a specific technique you would use to go about that, or is that just kind of like easily, just gently working it back in?
Wait, say it again. I was like renaming stuff, and I didn't really actually listen.
Oh no, you're good. I fumbled through the question anyway, so it's totally fine. Just with the chiaroscuro that you're talking about before, you said that black would desaturate the shadows and stuff, but then you just kind of like work it back in. Is there a specific way you would go about that, or is it just kind of like subtly kind of working it back in?
Yeah, it's just like if that's if that's like desaturated and I wanted it to be red, I just put the red back in.
Okay.
But what I have done is like allowed the value to shift, and then I kind of bring the value back or the color back by putting the color on top. But I don't change the value. Like I said that this was darker, but I want to kind of have like a red hue to it, so I kind of glaze on top of it, right? Like if I was to like glaze on top, it makes it have life again. But then if you look, this is the color in its purest form. So this is what I was going back to. Like, it's all skill, it's really hard to teach to do that well, but that's what's happening, if you were curious. Okay. Yeah, I could take another question.
Another got a short one, I guess. You said that like a lot of the goodness in your values comes from your ability to like control your pen pressure really tightly. How do you improve that?
Oh, you just gotta stop pushing so damn hard all the time.
Got it.
It's that is a technical skill.
Yeah.
And so the way that I got good at it was just painting a lot, right? Okay. Like, and I would do these exercises where I would try to like paint really softly and hard, like, just practice that. Okay. Like try to like, so like, you have like this value here, right? Uh-huh. Now I'm like, I have black, yeah, right? So it's like, can you match that value? I got pretty close. All right. And you'll see that if you try that and you don't have enough experience, You might go like too dark.
Yeah.
But like, how do I like get you to get better at that, right? Like I can't. You have to just get better at it.
It's muscle.
Like,
it's a muscle thing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I can say like do push-ups to get stronger, but you have to do the push-ups, you know. And
Right.
it's like it's nothing complicated. It's not like something crazy. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, you recommend anything like specific to aid or to remove for it to be more effective, like
No,
the settings on the
you, dude.
tablet or any...
No, I'm telling you what you got to do. You know, you just gotta like just have good pen pressure.
I know. I'm saying like I'm just asking like not in the sense of like something to make it easier, just something to make the exercise more effective, I guess.
Yeah.
For example, like
oh,
changing
sorry.
changing the settings on your tablet to make the pen pressure like more sensitive or something like that.
No, I understand. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's like, if you are trying to like bridge the gap, right?
Mm.
Like if you're like, man, it's like really hard, and you want to change your settings so you can kind of do that, then you got to think of it like, well, you're supplementing your skill, right?
Yeah.
You're giving yourself a handicap, and if you recognize that, then you can try to like slowly but surely remove the handicap, right?
Okay.
But ultimately, what I'm trying to tell you is that like that's what it is, though. You're practicing.
Yeah.
This is why like it's funny whenever I was starting to paint on the iPad, and I have friends who are just like, I can't do it. The pen pressure is so weird. Like that just demonstrates they don't have enough control. They've gotten so adapted to the tablet, Wacom tablet or whatever tablet they're using, that they can't adjust. As long as I have pressure of any kind, I can adjust. Like I have like
That's
a
crazy.
0 to 100 range. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
Or people have like maybe only like a 50 to 100 range.
Yeah, I can't pay it on the iPad for that same reason. It's like
Yeah, totally. I get it. Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah, I'm saying that's my point. You know, a
Totally,
good example of this would be like why can't you tightrope? Like it's like the same kind of questions. Like how do I get better at tightroping? And you've never tried to walk on a tightrope. You know, it's like first just put your feet on the tightrope. You know, and then you'll start to find all your flaws, and then you just keep practicing. I did this exercise to demonstrate to my students before, where I learned how to juggle. So I'm just going to juggle, like literally just going to juggle every day for 30 days, and then I learned how to juggle. Like I didn't do anything weird. I didn't I watched a couple videos on how to practice, right? And it all made sense. Like start one at a time. I was like, okay, I can do that. And then
I did that too. I did that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just like once I was able to do 3, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep doing 3 until I can fucking like stay on 3. You know.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is like you're past that. You're past the whole juggling with 1 and 2 balls. Like you're on the 3 balls right now. There's just it's like you're still dropping a couple of them, but there's nothing more than that, right? Like there's no more past that. You just got to now just practice. Like you're already a capable painter. You just need to get better at it. You know.
Yeah. Cool.
Like I wasn't always this way. I wasn't always this way. It's like, you know, like it's years and years of practice. That's why I don't like to say anything else, because I don't want to be like, oh, you just got to do this, and then you do it, and you're like, you feel like it's not working. When the truth is, you just got to like just practice.
It's like 90% of it is just like practice, and then like or
like
even 99% of it.
This specifically, when you talk about like design, there are stuff like that I can explain, like the rules of 3. You know, the layer kicking. That's something that I can tell you today. And you can apply tomorrow, right? I could talk about like, you know, careers. I can talk about there's stuff that I can give advice on that has nothing to do with practice, but more about like knowledge about how to be a good artist, right? But then there's just stuff where it's just like there is no trick. It is just practice, you know? And whenever those things come up, like when those types of questions come up, I make sure that it's clear. There's no question about what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so that way people don't get disillusioned, right, and disappointed.
Got it.
Because once you respect that it's practice, then it's hard to get mad at it when you're not doing a good job, right? And you said it yourself, like you do with juggling, like you should have it also the same example that I'm bringing up, like another real world example, and it's exactly true, right? Like Like when you were learning juggling, right? You said you know how to juggle?
Yeah, I bet a friend that I could learn to juggle in 3 days.
Yeah. Okay. So what did you do? Like, how did you learn? Was it just like
I just did it straight up 3 days. I was
yeah,
like, just
yeah,
fucking juggling
exactly.
all
You
day.
just sat there and just fucking did it. Yeah. And there's some stuff in art that's just like that. It's just that's all it is. Just mechanical training.
Yep.
Okay. It just looks like magic. I get it. I know it's like there must be something. AJ must be doing something, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, man, it's just like I'm just really good. You know? Like just well practiced. And I want to make sure that that's true. But that's why I say like a lot of other artists that are in my position, like really good artists teaching other people, they do this though. They do tell people like this is what I do. This is how I think. And I find time and time again students like try it and then it doesn't stick, and then they get confused. And I'm like, it's not the teacher's fault because they're coming from a different vantage point. You know, they're not lying to you. That is what they're doing.
They're giving an honest answer. It's just not.
Yeah, but they're not. I think sometimes teachers also don't recognize that that's not the answer that the person needed to hear.
Yeah.
You know, and so, I've done this, by the way. I've done this where I was like, when people used to say like, "What are you thinking about when you paint?" And I used to get these like huge philosophical answers, and then I thought about it because I saw my students weren't really getting it, and I was like, am I really thinking about this shit? Like, am I? Or is that what I like to think I am thinking about? Right? And I was like, no, I don't actually think about anything. I'm just painting. Like I'm just doing it. Yeah. And I was like, wait, I'm not thinking about stuff? Wait, what? How's that work? You know? And then I started to rationalize it and understand why. And I was like, oh, there's like, is there any other example of this? It's like, yeah, walking. I do this all the time. I don't ever think about it. So maybe it's like that, you know? And I was like, if that's true, then how did I get so good at walking? And I was like, well, I did it a lot. I was like, oh, okay. And I paint a lot. All right. I can see the connection here. And when I talk about it with other people immediately see the connection too, you know? Because I've started to realize that I was lying to people when I was saying, oh, no, I think about shapes. I do this and this. When in reality, I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. That's all subliminal. It's all subconsciously built into me, you know, over years and years of training. And that's a better answer now. And if I come up with even more of a better answer, right, like old Miyagi, Anthony Jones, then that answer is going to be even more solid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's like this Indian guy who's like a philosopher. He's like old and wise looking, and he's like, you just know he thinks about this stuff all the time because his answers to questions are so solid, right? Like he was talking about how people have a hard time seeing their own flaws, right? He said, we have a nose on our face. And it's like, if you have bad breath, the nose like literally above your mouth can't smell your bad breath, but everybody else can, you know? And it's like, and if somebody else's breath stinks, oh, you will tell them all about it. Right. And I was like, damn, that's fucking great analogy, dude. I was like, he really has been thinking about that, you know? And it's just really about like seeing your own flaws and understanding that. And it's like a perfect way of get people to immediately like understand, you know? And that's what I'm about now. I'm all about that kind of stuff. So trust me when I tell you, like, this is just practice. You'll get there, man. It's nothing special about what I'm doing either. Like, it's nothing like, oh, only I can do it. Like, no, it's just I've been doing this longer. All right, guys.
Dude, for real, the way you teach seems more like magic to me than the way you paint right now.
Sure.
It's kind of crazy, man.
Well, look, I appreciate you guys. I have great students. You guys are kicking butt. I'm proud of all of you. I'll see you guys next week. Don't be strangers, and take care. Be safe. I'll see you in the race wars.
Take care,
my fellow Americans.
Take care.
All right. See you later.
Good luck.
Cheers. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you like the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.